There was a little bit of controversy over the weekend after the final pages of Moon Knight number 30, the end of the line, going into a cynical cash grab called The Vengeance of the Moon Knight. Whatever it is, with the exact same writer, Jed MacKay, and artist Alessandro Cappuccio, starts up so we could see the death of Moon Knight. And there was a rumor or accusations that a black lesbian vampire was taking the place of Moon Knight in the comic book. And people demanded, Wes, you have to cover this. This is a job only you could do or something. I'm like, man, I do not work for Marvel Comics. This is something they should be sorting out, but obviously they didn't. But the comic book is out now, and I've actually read it in full to get a little context to what's going on here. And people are wondering, did this actually happen? Did a black lesbian vampire really replace Marc Spector, the Moon Knight? Kind of, sort of, but maybe not. Depends on how you look at it. But I can see why the controversy remains, and I can see why people are so fed up with Marvel Comics because they've been using this strategy for so long that they would believe it every single time it comes out. And it's not like this isn't happening in other books. Hey, I hate to break it to you. If you're a fan of Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze is about to leave so Talia Warroad could take over. Now let's look at the picture in question. This is the very final page of Moon Knight number 30, the big death of Marc Spector, the Moon Knight. He could no longer be resurrected because of the events that happened in Jason Aaron's Avengers, I believe, that kind of set up this Moon Knight run, which has actually been pretty good, been going on for 2.5 years there. And we have the main players of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight outside of Moon Knight, although he is kind of standing over them. We've got Hunter's Moon, Tigra, Soldier, 8-Ball, and the aforementioned Reese. And 3 of these are new creations of Jed MacKay introduced into this series. Hunter's Moon, who also has some powers of Khonshu, and seemed like he was set up to be the main antagonist to Moon Knight when it started out. That turned out not to be the case. He ended up working with him. Soldier, who's actually also a vampire because of something that happened with Reese. And then we have Reese sitting in the chair. She does have the Moon Knight symbol going around her neck. She has the all-white suit just like Moon Knight would. And she is sitting in the throne that Moon Knight would take when he was sitting there in charge of the Midnight Mission. And we also have Tiger, who's certainly been an Avenger and has a long-standing history with Moon Knight. 8-Ball, was he Sinister Six? He used to be a villain, but he's been working with Moon Knight in this series. So there are some new creations of Jed MacKay throughout his Moon Knight run there. And obviously everyone is focusing on Reese. I can say first off about the character. When Marvel or DC introduce a new female character, especially a black female character, in the last 5 years, I assume kind of there probably are lesbians, but I believe, and I've read the entire series, I don't believe that's ever actually been confirmed. Likely, but not confirmed. So we can probably throw out the lesbian thing because I don't think that's actually happened. And I don't believe, after reading this comic book, they have established who the new Moon Knight is. She certainly has replaced Marc Spector, Moon Knight, as the leader of the Midnight Mission through that image there. And I believe, and is it issue 28? I think it's 27 or 28 that Marc Spector had gone to Reese and said, hey, if I can't continue the Midnight Mission, I want you to take over. And obviously in the final page of issue number 30, she has taken over. So yes, she has replaced Marc Spector in that regard. Now, has she replaced him as Moon Knight? No, not yet. If it happens, it hasn't happened yet. And it doesn't sound like it is going to happen because writer Jed MacKay did go out there and talk about this just a little bit. This is a quote that he gave. Well, we know what Moon Knight looks like as he's on the cover of Vengeance of the Moon Knight #1. And I think it's pretty obvious that it's not her in that costume. Ha ha. No, Reese has been left in charge of the Midnight Mission in the event of his death. Throughout Vengeance of the Moon Knight, we're going to see how she, along with the rest of the Midnight Mission crew, deals with this change in leadership. So there you go. She's not going to be apparently the new Moon Knight, according to Jed MacKay. And we have seen the cover, and I just showed it to you right there. That does not appear to be her in the Moon Knight costume. I've always assumed when Moon Knight dies, because they have said he's going to die, and I think they said 9 months ago, they were going to relaunch it as the Vengeance of the Moon Knight or whatever. And there would be a new Moon Knight stepping forward, that it would be Hunter's Moon, because he actually has a connection to Khonshu, Bot or whatever his name is. He's the last guy that was resurrected by Khonshu before, I guess, the resurrection powers were shut down. So Marc Spector can't come back because they up the stakes or whatever. But at this point, we've seen so many like superhero deaths, not just at Marvel or DC, but everywhere, that you can't just help but just be completely cynical and know that that is not the fucking case. We just had, what is it, Death of Doctor Strange, and then we had another series where his wife took over, and then shockingly, he's back by now, and we're going to have Johnny Blaze die, and Talia Warrow took over, and then Johnny Blaze is going to come back because all these deaths mean nothing, and maybe there'll be a little bump on that #1 issue for Vengeance of the Moon Knight. Even though it's got the exact same writer, the exact same artist, it's going to continue the exact same story that was concluded in this comic book. But hey, it's spec value, right? If we got spec value, somebody else is underneath the suit, even though they're going to be replaced in less than a year. You know, I'm pretty cynical on this. As far as the comic book goes, I've really enjoyed Moon Knight there for a long time. I would say a good 18 months. Moon Knight was probably the best series that Marvel had been putting out, and like, I don't want to oversell this. Like, this isn't amazing stuff. The art by Alessandro Cappuccio probably is amazing. But, like, the writing, it doesn't even live up to, like, Venom by Donny Cates or Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing. So even some of the better stuff of recent, like, it's not better than that. I think in any other era, it's probably pretty average. But, you know, by this era standards, by this Marvel standards, it's actually pretty decent. I would say the ending here fell flat and wasn't all that interesting. It was really boring because he got the mortal wound, the one that was going to kill him in the previous issue where they had the big reveal of who the new Black Spector was, which was also a big wah-wah moment. So I don't know. If you're going to read a Marvel comic nowadays in continuity, I would read Incredible Hulk. Although there's a good chance that Incredible Hulk is also going to be replaced by like a 14-year-old girl named Charlie. I'm pretty sure that's what they're setting up there too. It's just something that Marvel's been doing, where they have to replace all their male heroes with like female leads, normally diverse, a lot of times lesbian. So I could see why people came to that conclusion. Although I do think it's only partially true. I don't think she's going to be Moon Knight. It doesn't appear that way. Eventually perception becomes reality. And that is the reality for Marvel Comics, is that nobody trusts them. I will talk a little bit more about the comic book here, just some of the stuff I didn't think worked out all that well. The big reveal that Black Spector was actually Robert Plesko, who was like Marc Spector's psychologist or whatever. And once he found out that Marc Spector had died at the hands of Bushman or whatever, he sought Bushman out to learn like why he did it and what he did. And then he wanted the entire city to go insane. So he made a device to make everyone go crazy. What does this actually do for Plesko? How does it benefit him? I'm not really sure. I guess he just really liked seeing the suffering and humanity or whatever. I thought that was not well executed. Let's just put it that way. I was like, oh, that's your big plan. I guess we're just going to, we don't actually have a real reason for this. And this guy wasn't even really in the Jed MacKay series. I think he made a few cameos, but if you read it, you're never like, oh man, he shouldn't be trusting that Plesko guy. I thought this reveal was just fucking DOA. It just absolutely sucked. Another thing about Reese that was kind of funny is at the end when they have to go storm the compound where that Black Spector guy is to stop the device that's going to make the entire city go crazy. There's only enough room for so many of the members of the Midnight Mission. Reese is the one they left at home because she's the fucking secretary. She's not even a hero. I don't understand why she's in charge of the Midnight Mission. They're like, yeah, you stay in the offices. You answer the phones, and Tiger and Soldier and 8-Ball and fucking Hunter's Moon are going to help me out on this. And then I think Zodiac shows up in the Midnight Mission. Although I thought if he went in the Midnight Mission, he would die or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was explained at some point, but he couldn't do it. And it turns out Zodiac has been helping out Black Spector, which we knew, but Black Spector had been lying to him. And Reese tells him, like, you're such a dumbass because there are no more resurrection protocols once he kills Mark. He's not going to come back, so you won't get to kill him. And this is just overwhelmingly sad to fucking Zodiac. He's losing his mind. It's like, if you wanted to kill him, why did you help someone else kill him first? Like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. Like, Jed MacKay, he might be one of the better writers at Marvel these days. My goodness, he doesn't stand out as good. This is the only time in the history of Marvel, probably over the last 40 years, where Jed MacKay would have been considered like pretty damn good. But that was like the big reveal. It was like, what do you mean if he dies, he dies? I'm not going to get to kill him. And he gets really upset. And I guess he tries, or at least is threatening to kill Plesko by the end of the comic book, which I thought was pretty stupid. The one thing that I thought that was cool, tip of the cap to fucking Alessandro Cappuccio, the artist here, while Marc is dying, and he's seeing like these other versions of his personality and other parts of his life as they're kind of stirring him on to stop the computer that's going to make everyone go crazy. Khonshu comes and like puts his hand on his shoulder and speaks to him. We haven't really seen this. He hasn't been speaking to Khonshu since I guess Badr died and was resurrected, and he can't really do that anymore. He's been like absent from the series. So I thought this was cool. The art here was absolutely dope. Like the interaction kind of made sense. And this is the only time that the death of Moon Knight ever felt like it meant anything or had any type of emotional resonance in it, at least to me. I've seen some other people out there have really enjoyed this issue and thought like it really packed an emotional punch. Me personally, emotions not punched in this one. Let's just put it that way. I thought it was just kind of, I don't know, it was kind of boring. He just dies really, really slowly while trying to stop a computer or whatever, while Reese yells at Zodiac. It just, hey man, if this is the ending that you wanted, I'm glad that you got it. This is not the ending that I wanted, although I will admit, this right here was cool. Everything else just felt like an afterthought and not very good. In the last page reveal, I guess the legacy of Marc Spector and the Midnight Mission lives on in the people that he was helping that were part of the Midnight Mission team, and we will be getting a new Moon Knight. It appears that it will not be Reese, but she will be running the Midnight Mission. No doubt about that. If Moon Knight wants to do anything in the Midnight Mission, he's going to be asking Reese for permission because she's in fucking charge now. And she'll be like sending him out on missions. You know what they're going to do. Because like I said, she's not really like a hero. She's the secretary of the Midnight Mission. She was his receptionist. And certainly she believes in the mission because she was attacked and turned into a vampire against her will. And Marc almost kills her, and he doesn't because of that. And I think she does save Soldier. She jumped in front of a bullet, and that's how he got turned into a vampire, because some of her blood traveled from the bullet into his heart or something and turned him into a vampire. But these guys are all going to be like licking her fucking boot, and she's going to be bossing everybody around, even though she was only the secretary for Marc Spector for like, I don't know, you're talking Marvel sliding timeline, what, like 2.5 months, maybe 3? If that, you know, it wasn't very long, but now she's in charge. But she is not going to be the Moon Knight, but she will be telling the Moon Knight, the new Moon Knight at least, what to do and how high he can jump and how far and all that kind of stuff. I would say the controversy was half right. She's absolutely in charge of the Midnight Mission. She has replaced Marc Spector in that fact. She's the new leader of the team, and she will be girl bossing around the Moon Knight. Now, in the next 12 months, will we get the big reveal that she's in fact a lesbian? I do not know that, but I would not be surprised because it is Marvel Comics in 2023, moving into 2024. And me personally, not a great ending, pretty stupid last page. I guess the thing that bothers me the most is the cynical cash grab, to where they're once again rebooting a fucking series for no reason whatsoever. I just can't get enough of these reboots. They're just absolutely amazing. The exact same artist, the exact same writer, the exact same storyline, but we got to get a #1 issue out there. I wonder why people are losing faith in Marvel Comics. And like, this was never a great seller. I do think it had sold in like the top 40 range. Like, it was a decent seller. At least it sold some comic books and had some staying power. But they're absolutely inviting people to walk away, not only by rebooting it to a #1 issue for no fucking reason, but also with that last page reveal to where Reese does take over. She's not the new Moon Knight, but she is going to be in charge. And if you want some more information about this and other Marvel comics that are out there, I do want to tell you, every Thursday on the Thinking Critical Patreon, Jim from Weird Science shows up, and we talk about all the new releases from Marvel, DC, and indie comic books that we can get through in a 2-hour time frame. We definitely prioritize the big comic books like a Moon Knight #30, which is the death of Moon Knight, and every single #1 issue, and we'll give you all the good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff you want to avoid, in-depth conversations, and lots of fun and shenanigans, because we do have the dad corner at the end of every one of those episodes. And I talk about what it's like to have 3 boys ages 2, 4, and 8. And then he talks about what it's like to be a dad with 5 boys in between the ages of 17 and 29. Shockingly, mine are a little bit more PG or even G-rated, while his are a little bit closer to R-rated stories. And it's basically me consoling Jim about his life and reminding him it can always get worse. Definitely check out the link to the Patreon in the video description.